Hello, Internet. Gino, that Pinguino Viejo here again with another episode of Deep Listens. Prepare to get locked in the chain of memories with us for this episode where we discuss Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories because we hate ourselves, but we love you, our listeners. And so we're going to be discussing Kingdom Hearts again because we needed to know after playing Kingdom Hearts 3, or M played Kingdom Hearts 3, and we discussed it. I needed to go back to the scene of the crime. I needed to know why these games were like this, and I feel like Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories is patient zero of most of the anime bullshit and most of the problems that I feel plagued the series. And so we're here, and we're going to discuss it, as always, with Pete, Goofy, Busby.
What's going on, everybody? I'll take that. Goofy gets the shield. And in terms of combat effectiveness, shields are actually vastly underrated. You know, a lot of people think that the reason the Spartans were so effective was because they shifted the shield from a single grip in the center to sort of the on-the-sleeve grip that they transitioned to. But that's neither here nor there. This week's fun fact comes...
That wasn't the fun fact?
No, that was just a little thing that I had keyed up.
Wow.
I know. This week's fun fact comes courtesy of the 2015 French Scrabble champion.
Great.
Yeah. So apparently... I don't know if he's still the champion, but when Nigel Richards won, he couldn't speak a word of French. He memorized the entire French Scrabble dictionary, supposedly in 9 weeks, and then used that knowledge to crush everybody and win in 2015, which I think is just equally remarkable and unnecessary.
And as we all know, the only way to become the Scrabble champion is to kill the previous Scrabble champion, so he will be the Scrabble champion for many a year.
Yeah.
Nigel's unkillable. And that other voice you hear is M. Donald Palladino.
I knew you were going to give me Donald, and I really wanted to do the voice, but I'm not even going to attempt that.
Can you do Mickey?
No.
No?
The only thing you need for the Mickey impression is really just the laugh.
Ha ha. Ha ha.
Yeah, right?
That's all he is the ha-ha.
Yeah, that's it.
Did someone say the door to darkness?
Yesterday I was watching Space Jam, as you do.
Yeah,
of course.
It really occurred to me how much better the Looney Tunes characters are than the Disney characters, in terms of personality and actually being funny. It's amazing that Mickey Mouse is so popular considering he's such a nothing character.
He used to be a lot better. In old school, Steamboat Willie level Mickey, he was very mischievous. He was a trickster. And he sort of lost that over time.
Yeah, but he doesn't get to talk in those ones. The ones where he can't talk, he's mischievous. And then the ones where he can talk, he has nothing to say. Because at that point, he has stuff to lose.
Damn.
Unlike Bugs
Bunny.
Bunny.
Became the mascot of a multi-billion-dollar enterprise that...
Yeah, he totally sold out. He got all corporate.
Yeah, he can't play all his usual tricks because then the law people... Yeah.
The shareholders have to... He's accountable to them, ultimately.
Yeah, Walt will unfreeze himself and just start cracking skulls.
Yeah,
but Bugs Bunny owes nothing to no one. And so he gets to have his freedom. So, we have an email.
Ooh.
Woohoo.
We have feedback from this show. If you want to get in touch with the show, you can do so at Deep Listens Pod on Twitter. You can do so at deeplistens.libsyn.com. We've got comment sections. And you can send an email to deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. And I wish that this person sent emails, but ZP never sends emails. This one was actually, it was a quilt that arrived at my door with this embedded inside of it, which I feel it defeats the purpose. If you send a quilt, you should write on the outside, not the inside. But
I just so I knitted a scarf once, and it was brutal. Yeah. I can't imagine knitting a whole quilt, how long it would take. Very
I don't
impressed
know if you knit quilts.
No, you stitch them.
Ooh, and you're right. I'm thinking of Afghans.
You are thinking of Afghans. Okay. Just a classic Pete moment.
Yeah, it's one of those vintage blanket mix-ups.
Yeah.
Well, here's what the message said. Dear communist bastards. That's aggressive.
Right. It was good start.
It was in all caps, too.
Mm-hmm.
Was it in red font?
No, but his next sentence was, better dead than red, motherfuckers. Anyway, a few additions to your few podcasts that are not about Kingdom Hearts. Well, sorry, that's all our show is now. On the Obra Dinn podcast, Pete mused about why the agents of the East India Company would have exact metrics on the value of life and death. Well, looks like he's too busy contaminating his brain with communist narratives that he didn't study the actual history of the British East Indian Company. You sucker.
What a clown. I can't believe I didn't do that background research.
Not only did the East India Company invent the concept of publicly traded stock and were the first to issue stock, but they invented the modern idea of insurance. Unfortunately, the slave trade was one of the primary industries to embrace the concept of insurance. Predictably, the insurance industry did nothing to stop their budding relationship with the most despicable practice in human history due to profits. This, in turn, accelerated the practice of slavery in Europe as slave ships were able to secure credit more readily. Additionally, it led to the abhorrent practices we should shudder to think about today. The most heinous example being the Zong massacre, where the slave ship Zong threw slaves overboard when it began running low on drinking water. The crew threw slaves overboard in part to assure the survival of the rest of the crew's passengers, and in part to cash in on the insurance on the slaves, thus not losing money on the slaves who would have died from the lack of water. The reason drowning was viewed as an act of God and fully covered, whereas starvation was the result of negligence and was not covered. It's horrible, but I think it sheds a light on part of the history criminally underrepresented in all media, and part of what I enjoyed about the Obra Dinn. No one talks about the cruelty of taking capitalism to its literal breaking point. Likewise, if Pete wanted to know, the East India Company borrowed the idea of insurance from India, the practice being a form of collective cooperation. A local Aryan population pooled their collective riches to make sure everyone could get medical treatment when needed. So yes, 3,000 years ago, India invented socialized medicine, and yes, capitalized took the idea and ruined it.
Yeah, this all sounds accurate so far.
Yeah.
And one last note, this is about Gris. No one mentioned where the title Gris comes from on the podcast. During the Renaissance and the Baroque periods, it was common to paint entire picture portraits in shades of gray or earth tones. This practice... Pete, you try and pronounce this. Grisaille. Grisay. Discovered a lot of critical artistic concepts many take for granted, no pun intended, today. Thanks to these early experimentations, we now know gray is a beautiful background color for gold and skin tones. Also, Grisay led to the growing practice of layering to make them more vivid. Paintings would start with an initial layer painted exclusively in gray, and then colors made with a bright glaze would be brushed on top of that. The Grisay would then provide shading and unlock more vivid colors not previously seen. P.S. Gino should throw Pete a bone the same way he did when he forced me to play Final Fantasy XIII. Allow the man to talk about something he loves for 5 minutes before forcing him to dive into Gino's poor decision-making. I should have read the P.S. before I read it out loud. And he sent sources, which...
Yeah, he didn't. You know, for as much as, you know, I perform chagrin whenever we get a CP email, he has good info. This is solid stuff. Thank you for the contribution.
He either has good info or a fever dream about the Namco timeline.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very hit or miss, but when he hits, it's strong.
Yes.
Guess they never miss, huh?
Look, if he never missed, it wouldn't be fun. It wouldn't be the Russian roulette that it always is every time we get an email. Well, now it's time to talk about Kingdom Hearts.
Yes, I've been waiting all week for this moment.
M, what's Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories?
I don't have to explain that. You do.
Yeah, it's your pick, bro.
Yeah.
Oh, I used to just have to tell Billy to do that.
Uh-huh.
And he would do it regardless of the game.
Nope.
Oh,
I could, but you made me talk about Kingdom Hearts for about an hour and a half 2 weeks ago. So...
Well, you wanted to do that.
I was so mad, and I'm over it now, so you can take this.
Oh no, when I tried to look up Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories, first Kingdom Hearts Re-Chain of Memories came up, which is a different game.
Oh, I played that game.
Oh, really? Okay. I played the GBA game.
I played the PS2 remake of it.
It's the same thing, right? Like, how different is it? Okay.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's the same game.
Gotcha.
Which is such a weird thing. Okay, well, Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories came out originally for the Game Boy Advance in December of 2004. It was the first sequel to the Kingdom Hearts franchise, following up Kingdom Hearts 1. It is not Kingdom Hearts 2 because, you idiots. Of course it wouldn't be Kingdom Hearts 2. And it came out on the Game Boy Advance, beginning Square's long obsession with releasing non-numbered Kingdom Hearts games on mobile and other odd platforms. It tells the story between Kingdom Hearts 1 and Kingdom Hearts 2, which is pretty novel looking back on it now because it is one of the only Kingdom Hearts games that's an actual fill-in between the two games that came out sequentially. So that's great. It actually is between 1 and 2, story-wise. Good on
it.
It
was simpler times then.
It was.
There was only one other game, so...
And this is the scene of the crime. This is the game that introduced Organization 13. It introduced Nobodies. It introduced a whole how they would manage to rework the same 6 Disney movies over and over and over again. It solved and created more problems than just about any other game in the franchise, I think. At least in terms of setting the franchise's path from then on. And it's a card game.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it's a card game. So, Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories is a bit of an odd duck. It stars Sora, Donald, and Goofy. And it starts, even on the Game Boy Advance, with a cutscene from, the PS2 game.
Mm-hmm.
Where Sora, Donald, and Goofy are called to a mysterious castle by a mysterious person in a hood. You can't tell who they are, but they lure you into this castle saying that King Mickey and Riku are there. And to find them, you must forget. Or to remember is to forget, and to forget is to remember. It's cryptic nonsense. They say cryptic nonsense. And so you enter this castle, and every floor you climb in this castle causes you to forget. And as you are forgetting, you play through flashbacks, basically, of Sora's adventures during Kingdom Hearts 1 as the memories die in his brain. And you're basically living through the fever dream of Sora's dying memories.
Yep. The basic conceit of all the cryptic nonsense, if you can say that there's a basic conceit at all, is that as you forget these sort of trivial, I shouldn't say trivial, but these sort of surface level memories, those deep core who you are as your being memories will become revealed.
Yes. That is that is what they say at the beginning of the game, but like so many Kingdom Hearts games, what they say at the beginning of the game is actually just bullshit because anime nonsense has to happen and reveal it to be false.
Mm-hmm.
So even that conceit is for suckers. So, should we discuss? I think let's start with the gameplay because Kingdom Hearts 1 is a pretty straightforward action-adventure game. But Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories is really a precursor to another game that we've played on this podcast, The World Ends With You. And you can see Tetsuya Nomura and his team working out a bunch of concepts that later showed up in that game. It is a single-player GBA game, but you're basically playing two games simultaneously. There's kind of an action game that you're playing where you're moving around and attacking enemies and, just mashing out with the A button to attack. But there's also a tiny, deck of cards that's in your bottom left-hand corner, and those cards have numbers on them. And in order to properly attack, you not only have to line up a card that actually, the cards will have attacks on them or magic or summons, but they will also have a number on them.
Yes.
Which, if your opponent plays a card of the same number or higher than yours, they will cause your attack to be canceled, and you'll be stunned temporarily.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're both working with that deck to, summon up the attacks that you want, but you also have to be paying attention to what the numbers are on those cards so that your attacks don't get stunned or canceled, because then you can get stun locked and get killed. And also, if your opponent is executing an attack with a high number, and the cards go from 0 to 9, if they're executing an attack that's a 9 and you try to use a 2 attack, your card will just be canceled. It'll just not happen. You won't be able to take action until you find a card that is the same number or higher, or a 0, which beats all other cards.
It's Stratego. If you've ever played Stratego, it's the same basic concept.
Yeah.
You can only capture numbers below yours.
Yeah, and once you've used up all the cards in your deck, you have to kind of recharge by holding down the A button until you summon back the cards that are in your deck. But while you're doing that, you are completely vulnerable and unable to attack. And there's also, you have to move around. You have a dodge roll. You have some basic movement mechanics as well. So you are simultaneously trying to line up your character, attack your opponent, dodge, move, and you're paying attention to these numbers. And then they also unlock a feature where you can stash cards. You can stash up to 3 at a time, and when you do so, their number value gets combined. So you can make kind of big attacks that have a very high number that is hard to break. That makes it so that most enemies can't interact with you when you're performing these combo attacks. And depending on what cards you've stashed, you can perform different special moves that are called slies. And they will kind of do extra damage. They'll do special animations. But whenever you perform a sly, it causes one of your the first of your 3 cards that you've stashed to go away forever for the rest of the fight. So you generally want to save those until the end of the fight when you don't care about, tomorrow. And there's also boss cards that you can use, or special enemy cards that you can use that, temporarily change the rules of engagement. Like, there's some that make your attacks hit longer distance. Some of them make it so that your attacks can never be broken. Some just heal you, and it doesn't care about what your opponents are doing. So there's that too, just in case there weren't enough things going on. Did I miss anything?
Did you guys ever use those?
No.
I did not. They're stored in a separate deck too. So in order to use them, you have to actually flip to that deck, which I don't even know what the button is to do that.
It's select on the Game Boy Advance, and the game did not tell me how to do that. I was just in battle. I thought that the boss cards were always applied, and then I realized during a battle I made a deck for a specific boss card that made it so that the numbers on cards were reversed in value. So a 9 was a 1 and a 1 was a 9. And then I made a deck that was all low numbers, and I was like, excellent. My opponents will be, playing all 9s, and I'll be playing all 1s, and I'll get the advantage because of course, your deck, you have a total number of card points that you can associate with your deck, and every card is worth different points, and the lower the number on the card, the lower the point count that it costs generally. So I was like, I can play way more cards because I'm playing all these weak cards, but in my deck, they're strong. But then I got into a battle, and none of my attacks worked because I was just getting beaten out by my opponent's cards constantly. I was like, oh, shit. I must not understand something here.
That would have been a really easy solution to the boss cards. They just were a permanent effect that you never had to use. You just slot them in, and then you, can't have your heels broken or something. I would play that every single time I ran through this game. Because one of the worst things that can happen to you is you're low on health and you use a 5 cure, and then your opponent just breaks it before you can even get the heal off, and then you die because that was your only cure. Yep. It feels real bad.
It's extra bad because when you're playing this game, so there's, I think, 2 modes of this game. There's random battles and boss fights against regular enemies that behave like bosses that behave like regular enemies. They just kind of do their thing and they don't seem to be behaving like a human opponent. And then there's boss fights against enemies who behave like human opponents, in that they can stack up slies like you can. They have a deck that seems to be being manipulated directly. And those battles are infinitely harder than any of the other battles. And so most of the ordinary battles against regular opponents, or even boss battles that play out like they're, against Heartless, those are all cakewalks.
You just slam buttons.
Yeah, you're just mashing the A button. Everything's dying constantly because you can just stack your deck so that you've got a bunch of 7, 8s, and 9s, and most of the enemies in this game don't play cards that are that high. And so all of your attacks come out. You're comboing constantly. You can even, just bust out a boss card at the beginning of the battle that like doubles your damage, but then you can't reload or something, and it doesn't matter because everything will be dead before it matters. You can use slies however you want because generally one trip through your deck will kill all your enemies. So who cares if you're burning cards? There's no tomorrow. But against any boss that behaves like a human, or it generally is humanoid enemies like Hades, Captain Hook, Riku, we'll get to that. Members of Organization 13, they have a deck that they move between just like you. And if you try to do things like a Sly, they will immediately jump to a 0 card in their deck and break your Sly. If you try to heal, they will immediately break your heal. They just kind of wait. Like in the early game, it's fine. They don't do that. But then in the late game, when you're up against bosses, they tend to either create Slies that are much better than yours, much faster than you can, because you're a simple human, and they just stun lock you forever or lock you out of using your abilities, or they just use their zeros on you constantly. So it just becomes an entirely different game.
Yeah. The II is actually too smart, and it's faster than any human can process. You have to actually flip through your deck if you want to find a specific card, but they can just jump to cards, it seems.
Maybe this is a relic of the GBA. Like, I can't remember exactly how all the buttons were mapped, but like, why not just have hotkeys? Like, I can map 0 to, I don't know, R or something, and then I can deploy it whenever I need it.
Yeah.
Because by the time you flip to it, it's too late.
I kind of did that myself. What I did was I put the zeros all at the start of my deck, and then I basically jumped to the first card that was not a 0. So I was always one shuffle away from my zeros.
Oh, you could always just backtrack to them as you used cards and behind them, basically.
Yeah, so basically I set up the stack so that everything that I wanted sequentially, like if I had a Sly that I wanted, I would always put the 3 cards immediately next to each other, and then I'd know once I see this card, okay, Sly time.
That makes sense. Maybe I just didn't want to solve this problem.
It's
maybe
not
I
a
was just so
fun
angry.
problem.
Yeah, I was just like, no, I refuse to fix this.
Yeah, the game is good about allowing you to add and remove cards from your deck, but sorting cards is a pain in the ass.
Yeah. There is a button, actually, that will let you, like, jump to a card, but I never figured out what the button was on the PS4 version. I knew I could set, like, this is my, I don't know what it's called even.
It's
like,
probably got a bullshit name.
Yeah, you like save this one card and then you can jump to it anytime, but the game never told me what button to press in order to get to that card, even in the menu.
Why would it?
So
I just never did it. And
you must solve the Sphinx's riddle, and if you do so, you get to use the card you want.
I felt like I was missing something. I went back and I looked in there's help things for some stuff. I couldn't find it. I gave up. I decided that was not a feature the game gave me and moved on with my life.
Yeah, this game's systems, it manages to take what should be a simple combat system and complicate it with layers upon layers of nonsense that just makes it more frustrating. Because it's not like the numbers add all that much, because there's enough here in terms of dodging your opponent's attacks, timing your attacks, choosing when to use slies and when not to. Like, if all you had to do was, even if it wasn't menuing around, if they had some other way of inputting your attacks, and maybe you had a pool that you had to replenish instead of literally a deck of cards, or what if you have a deck of cards, but if you use your attack, it comes out, There are other ways to do it where most of the engaging parts of this game exist without the bullshit. And they did not, for some reason, I don't know why. I mean, this game has a lot of card stuff going on as well. Like, all of the levels that you go to take the form of cards. Donald and Goofy, when you enter the castle, get turned into cards. So it's not clear if Donald and Goofy are actually there for bits of it. So I think that they just kind of zoomed in on this aesthetic, that they liked cards. And, there's a lot of stuff that feels vaguely card gamey, like jacks and stuff like that. It makes the Alice in Wonderland section even more trippy. But they just went too hard. They wanted it too much.
They went so hard. Like you touched upon the maps, like each level is decided by the cards you use.
Oh, yes,
and
right.
that is a big aspect, because you could play real safe and you could just like, I'm going to just put treasure all the way to the door that I need to get through.
We should explain that.
Yeah.
So like,
okay.
you use... Basically, you are retracing Sora's steps through the worlds you visited in Kingdom Hearts 1, and we should talk about the story tweaks. We'll get to that in a bit. But the way that it actually plays out is you get a bunch of cards of each of these worlds, and you choose which world you want to go to next, and each world will represent a floor in the 13 floors of Castle Oblivion, which, what a name of this castle. And once you enter a world... you'll kind of run into some random battles in the first map, kind of where some story will play out, and then you'll get attacked by some random Heartless. But every time you defeat a Heartless, you will get a card. This card is either an enemy card, which can be added to your deck, or it's a card that is used to create the next kind of section of the map. They are kind of generic rooms, and they will have restrictions on what kinds of cards you can play. But within that parameter, you can play all sorts of stuff. So there's some cards that create rooms that just have a few enemies in them. There's some cards that create a save room. There's cards that create a room with just a treasure chest and no enemies. There's some that, have different special parameters, like attacks are powered up in this room, or stun effects will last longer in this room. And so you kind of have to decide what room you want to have next. And why don't you pick up from there, Am?
Yeah. So what I did, I thought my grand strategy would be to put premium rooms as far as the eye could see as I made my way through the first couple of worlds.
Oh, right. We forgot about premium cards.
Yeah.
What are premium cards? Why don't you explain?
I
think in your folly you will explain.
Yes. So, premium cards. Sometimes when you clear battle, a golden card will drop from one of the enemies that will, it can make any card in your deck, most cards in your deck, a premium card, which means that
it's shiny.
It's shiny, and it costs half as much CP to put into your deck. So, I decided making my cards cheaper was a valid use of my time. And
you idiot.
So I put premium rooms down, and I started to make all my cards premium. And then the problem came in when I reached a boss. I think it was Hades.
It's always Hades. He's the first human-style enemy you fight who's any difficult at all.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I got to Hades, and I was like, all right, here we go. And then I went through my whole deck, and I went to reload, and I reloaded my cards, and I didn't have any, because premium cards do not reload when you reload your deck. So I ended up in a situation where all of my high-cost cards were premium, and I could never unpremium them. So I just had to make Moogle rooms where I could buy more cards to try and get high-cost cards to replace the premium cards that I went to all the trouble to make.
Yeah, I had to look up what premium was in the game's glossary.
Yeah.
Which is always a good sign. You want one of your key mechanics to be in a glossary, not tutorialized at all. It's extra good if they don't introduce the mechanic to you in any official way. If it just kind of shows up, that's extra good. Really good design. A+ stuff. When I was playing, at a certain point when I realized what premiums did and that they made your cards go away, anytime one of my cards that was actually important got premiumed, I was really pissed off.
Mm-hmm.
Because premiums in most fights, it doesn't matter at all, right? You want to have all of these attacks because if you don't have to reload in a normal battle, that saves you time. You will beat most normal enemies, but you can beat them faster if you have a bunch of premiums in your deck, because then you don't have to care.
Yeah.
You can just mash the A button. But in boss fights, premiums are extra bad unless you have a bunch of item cards that ignore their premium status. So the way you can reload is two ways. You can either hold kind of the reload button, and then you'll reload your deck. There are also item cards that if you use them, they are one-time use, and they will restock your deck. And some of them will ignore the fact that cards are premium or that you use them in slides. They'll just load everything. So like a mega potion or a high potion will get you back all your attack cards. It doesn't care how you got rid of them. So, go ahead.
It was so early on in the game that I did not have access to mega potions, so I had no idea that that was even an option. So I just thought I had screwed myself real bad, which I did. But later on, when I was like finding mega potions, I was like, I guess it wasn't all that bad, but still, this does not feel good.
No.
Like a regular reload still would not restore your premium cards. So, and that's what you're doing 9/10 of the time because all your items are gone after the first one.
Yeah,
so,
and if you just have a single item in your deck, chances are your opponent will just break it every time you try to use it.
Yeah.
And then you just are stuck in Hurt Town.
Yep.
And it's worth mentioning that the high potion, regular potion, mega potion, all those different distinctions in the GBA game, like the way that you know that high potions restore premium cards and cards used in slides are like one-word differences in the item description.
Yeah.
So if you don't like fully grasp what's happening with the system, it's easy to not understand why they're any different, which is great.
Yep.
Super awesome. So Pete, what did you think of the gameplay system?
I tried to ignore as much of it as I possibly could.
Better man than I.
Yeah, so I picked like a few combos to prioritize, and after that just mashed buttons, honestly. What mostly bothered me was when you go to new levels and you generate these sort of random rooms, it's all the same. It's pretty much just like a different skin.
Yeah.
So as far as I'm concerned, the only level worth playing and the best level in the entire game is the 100 Acre Woods.
Yes.
Fuck. That's an indictment of this game.
Yeah, I know.
We will get to the 100 Acre Woods.
All right. I will talk about it when we get to it.
Let's just talk about the randomization real quick, because I think you made a good point. One is that, like, whatever card you use to generate a room, that card will play out the same way regardless of what world you're in. There will just be cosmetic, like really minor cosmetic changes to the rooms depending on which world you're in. So like a Teeming Darkness room will always have the same general layout. It will always have the same number of hittable items. Like there are items sometimes in the world that you can explore, and you can, if some of them will like give you free items if you jump on them. Some of them will give you free items if you hit them. And that's the entirety of the exploration that matters in this game.
Explore is a really generous term for what you're doing in this game.
And then there's Moogle rooms, which you mentioned, but these are rooms that are basically shops. They will give you a free card pack when you enter, and that's how you kind of get more cards in general. And then you can also grind. Is it dust? Is that the term?
It's
dust
like
your cards?
You melt them down into
Card
I don't
points.
even know. Yeah, card points.
You melt your cards into Moogle
Is that really
points.
what CP stands for?
I think CP is card points, and then
Yeah.
the stuff you spend is Moogle points.
Of course. Fine. Sure.
So you can melt your cards into Moogle points.
How do you
can
melt
then
a card?
Well, the animations are buying cards from one thing in the Moogle store, and the other one is a Moogle with a pot. So I
He
get
throws your cards into a pot and
What are
then
these cards made out of?
meth.
memories.
Okay.
Did you not
Apparently
listen to the
memories-
story?
No,
It's
you're
all
right.
memories.
You're right. I'm sorry. I should have known. That makes
It's
perfect
memories,
sense now that you
memories
say it.
all the way down. I love when you enter the castle and they're like, "Oh, I don't know how to fight anymore."
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, that's because all of your ability to battle have been turned into these cards, you idiot.
Yeah, that was nice. That was a good little like explanation of a video game trope that like
Yeah.
we all just sort of accept now. Like, why bother?
Yeah, but like buying cards and melting down your own cards, they've got all of the trappings of an addictive trading card game baked into this rote action adventure game.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, Pete, with like the kind of layouts being exactly the same, the enemy encounters, because of the unifying card system, they all play out the exact same way as well, because most enemies do not use cards that are higher, do not use 0 cards, and they do not use cards that are higher than like 6 in terms of their power. So against most random battles, you will be untouchable. They literally will not be able to interact with you. You can break all of their attacks. If you just have like 7s, 8s, and 9s in your deck, they will never take an action, and you are never in jeopardy, which makes the game just incredibly boring. But you still, at least in my experience, need to participate in battles because that's how you level up. And leveling up gives you more HP, it gives you more CP to add cards to your deck. It also gives you access to new slides, which are generally pretty powerful and you can't access otherwise. So the game really encourages you to go through these battles because you need the raw stat goo to make Sora any good at all. But you also are not enjoying any of it because none of it's challenging or different. Mm-hmm. Like, the enemies have attacks that are like different. The animations are different, but I never got to see most of them because they never got to use an attack. I just, won all of the clashes, and then they couldn't do anything. The only enemies that made me play even a little bit differently were enemies that had a shield from the front, and so then I had to like dodge roll behind them or use magic.
Mm-hmm.
But that was it. Like, otherwise, they were all the same.
Yeah. Not a lot of variance in the enemies, honestly.
Yeah, it was especially, I think, glaring because they managed to have a pretty preposterous number of enemy sprites and animations that they've done the work for, but because of the system they've made, you don't need to see any of it.
Yeah.
Like, I think they managed to include almost every enemy from Kingdom Hearts 1 in this game, but because of the system, it doesn't matter.
Yep. Brilliant. That's just what you want.
It's like they asked themselves, like, how can we get the absolute least out of as many pieces as possible?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's really an incredible engineering feat when you think about it.
I know. It's like asking someone to make a gigantic, life-size, fully featured version of Chutes and Ladders.
Mm-hmm.
Put all this craft into it, but ultimately, you're still playing fucking Chutes and Ladders.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think let's get to the story because I feel like the story...
Oh, thank God.
Okay.
In a lot of ways, it's got a lot of the same problems because they need to revisit all of the worlds from Kingdom Hearts 1 because they didn't have new worlds. So they need to find a way to get you through them again. And the way is memories. Sora's losing his memories, so he goes back to all these worlds. And I actually thought revisiting each of the worlds that you've played before was the most engaging part of this game. What did you both think about this? The general setup. Sora losing his mind.
So here's what I wanted, right? And I think this would have been a very interesting game, and I would have enjoyed it. So, like, the conceit is that everything's built based on Sora's memories, right?
Yeah. And the first level you go to, one of the characters realizes that they are not themselves.
Yes, they are a figment of Sora's imagination, which I'll complain about in a sec. But my point is, if all of this is based on Sora's memories, the game should be really, what did Sora really think of these people?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if Sora just hated Leon because he kind of sucks, or let's do Cloud because Cloud sucks. If Sora just hated Cloud, so, like, in his version, his memory, Cloud is just a huge asshole the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that would be an interesting
That
game.
would have been crazy.
Right? Like, ooh.
That would have been so cool.
There's a fatal flaw in your imagining here, Pete. and that is that Sora has any personality at all.
That's a good point. Sora doesn't have any sort of interiority to draw from.
Or feelings.
I will say, by 3, he has some personality.
Okay.
Good
it
for
only
him.
Takes, what,
I will
20
not-
years?
Yeah, I will not disparage Sora. He's a good boy. He's trying his best. It's a weird situation to be in.
It is, but he just... So, the very first level of this game is Traverse Town, and you meet all the Final Fantasy characters that are in the... Almost all the Final Fantasy characters that are in the game. And they talk about how they don't know who Sora is, they can't remember him. Sora has trouble remembering them, but he knows their name. Like, he remembers them, they don't remember him, but they know his name. And he's like, that's super weird, and they think it's super weird. And by the end of this sequence, where all of them are, talking to him by his name and saying, I feel like I know you, but I don't remember you at all. Sora realizes that all of these people are figments of his imagination. Aeris talks to him and says, hey, Sora, I don't actually exist. I think this is all in your head. And, like, Donald and Goofy are standing there, and they're like, Sora, you were talking to nothing for, like, a few minutes, and we were not going to say anything?
Yeah, we were just going to let that one go.
But, yeah, you weren't talking to anyone there, bud. And that moment kind of makes you think, oh, maybe this game's going to be a little interesting. Like, it's Sora slowly losing his mind. His friends are going along with it. His memories, like, maybe they're going to do something interesting with memory. But no, it's a Kingdom Hearts game. Of course they're not. Like...
Yeah, so
From then on, they go to all these other worlds, and each of the other worlds, they take the central plot of the Disney movie, but make it centered on memory instead of whatever it was originally centered on.
Yeah.
Why does Sora care?
Yeah.
Like, he goes and he's like, oh, we have to, like, save Hercules from Cloud. Like, Cloud's trying to kill Hercules. And I'm just sitting there like, who cares, Sora? You know Hercules doesn't exist. You know Cloud doesn't exist. You've been told these are all figments of your imagination. Just breeze on through.
Yeah. The only way it makes sense is if Sora's an idiot.
Which, it makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
And even, like, the him forgetting stuff, that being a central premise, you could even say, like, oh, he learned that from Aeris, but then he immediately forgot it because that's what this game's premised on.
Mm.
But no, he, like, actively remembers most of the shit that he's supposed to know until the end of the game. You wouldn't know they're forgetting anything except that they keep saying, oh, I'm forgetting so much. But there's not, like, examples of them forgetting things except for, like, key plot points, like individual character names that they forget. But there's nothing else that Sora, when he's speaking to Donald or Goofy, seems to actually be missing. He's not forgetting who Donald and Goofy are. He's not actually forgetting Riku's name. He's not forgetting any of the... He doesn't demonstrate that he's forgetting any of the shit that's happened to him,
Actually, this is a big plot point that we probably should talk about. He's actually remembering stuff. He's remembering more things than he is forgetting. He remembers a girl, Namine.
Yes.
And that is something that if you played Kingdom Hearts 1, you're like, I don't remember that. But Sora seems really...
But Sora remembers.
Sora remembers.
It's like The Walking Dead. Sora remembers.
Yeah. And that's like a big thing is who is Namine, and then we find out she's a witch, and...
Yeah, so with I got two things here. One is just like the general Disney stories. I think it is kind of cool that, like, the Cloud sequence in Hercules, it's not just the Hercules story anymore. Now, like, Cloud has forgotten his memories, and that's why he's doing everything. Or in Halloween Town, the doctor made a potion that brings back memories, and Oogie Boogie is driven mad by regaining all of his memories. Like, just changing those storylines just ever so little. Like the Queen of Hearts, I think wanting her memories, or like going to have her memory stolen, and then you trick her by convincing her of something that didn't actually happen, because being, told that you did something, being gaslit is in some ways worse than forgetting. Like, they had interesting little vignettes in here that were, I think, relevant to the central theme. But unfortunately, like you were just describing with Namine, all of the main plot line is garbage. Naminé is this character who it would be one thing if Sora's forgetting things and it's actually his important memories that are shining through, like, oh, he's forgetting stuff, but his friends he still remembers. Or, he's forgetting things, but now he's actually remembering some stuff that happened in Kingdom Hearts 1 that he didn't notice before. Maybe he's learning that Riku is more of a jerk than he thought he was. Or, he remembers a sequence with Kairi that gives Kairi a personality. Stuff. Stuff that he would remember.
Nice.
But instead, it turns out that Naminé is rewriting Sora's memory as you're playing through the game. So none of the forgetting... It's unclear whether the forgetting is happening because of the castle or because Naminé is fucking around with Sora's memories. But she's basically just replacing Kairi.
So the thing is, Naminé is supposed to be the one rewriting Sora's memories, but later on in the series, Aqua brings Ventus here, and that's a whole thing, and then she makes Castle Oblivion specifically to protect Ventus, and in order to do so, she has to make it so everyone who goes into the castle forgets what they're there for, which I guess is the way you protect someone. I don't know. That's the plot point.
I know that that's what they retcon Castle Oblivion into being eventually.
Yeah.
But at this stage, when you're playing the GBA game, all of the Organization 13 members they're on like floor 13, like the top of this castle, and none of them forget anything ever.
Yeah.
They all have perfect memory. They move around the floors constantly, and they're all fine.
Yeah.
Except for murdering each other, but that's
yeah, except for that, and we can talk about that. But like, none of the characters other than Sora, Donald, and Goofy forget anything ever in this game. And then even Donald and Goofy don't seem to forget very much.
No, at the very end they forget they're looking for Mickey specifically, but like they remember they're looking for somebody. I think.
Yeah, and even that. Forgetting they're looking for Mickey is like the second to last floor, and they each say like a sentence. This game has so little dialogue for outside of cutscenes, and most of the cutscenes are just retelling Disney stories, so they don't really have a lot to work with to give these characters interiority.
There are no actual characters that you come across outside of cutscenes. Like, you see Donald and Goofy between floors for like one sentence each, and then when you go into the level, they're cards, so you can't even talk to them. So you're basically just going from cutscene to cutscene, and there's no like interacting with people, which is weird. I don't know. The whole it's such a weird structure.
Yeah. It's a very odd way to put the game together. It just gives a lot of priority to the gameplay, and the gameplay is rote almost immediately.
It's not good.
Yeah. It's just such an odd thing, and I think the only way that this makes sense is that the game was trying to stretch the same Disney stories, but Tetsuya Nomura had to, or maybe he didn't write it, he had to come up with his own characters. And I think this is the example of where the Disney stuff and the Final Fantasy stuff starts getting usurped, because most of the main plot here is about Organization 13 and their internal machinations. There's Marluxia, Vexen, and Larxene?
Yeah, X's, all X's.
Axel's also here.
Axel's also here. So those four are in Sora's storyline, and you basically see Axel. Vexen creates the Riku clone. Fuck. There's a Riku clone, a Repliku in this game.
Nice, solid.
At one point, you meet Riku, and he's more of a jerk than usual, and he attacks you a bunch of times, and it turns out that he's a clone.
Because why not? Like, let's just toss some of that in there while we're at it.
Yeah, he's a clone, and he's being mind manipulated just like Sora is by Naminé. but most of the discussions are like between Vexen, Larxene, and Marluxia and Axel, and they like just kind of speak really vaguely about the organization and how they're going to control Sora. And all the major character development is in characters who Axel or you murder.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, they all die. You're right.
Yeah.
By the end of the game, all the character building they've done is for characters that are dead. Which is really the most just masturbatory way to write a story.
Well, they had to keep it self-contained, I would think.
That's exactly what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, they made this self-contained story that is long and asks you to play a bunch, and then they murder all the characters.
Really was the only point of the whole thing to get Sora in the pod.
Yeah, it's to get Sora in the egg.
Like, that's it, right? Like, that's the only thing we need from all this. Because he literally forgets everything else that happens.
Yep.
And to murder a bunch of the Organization 13 members.
So we can replace them with Ansem clones?
And establish Axel as a character.
Yeah. Like, okay, in Kingdom Hearts 3, I'm going to go back. The characters who are in Organization 13 in this game show up again because they're not actually dead or whatever. Or they...
Sure.
Yeah. And Sora doesn't remember any of them. You do, because you played the game, but Larxene shows up, and Sora's like, do I know you? And you're like, oh shit, he forgot all of that. Then what was the point? What was the point of any of this?
Does Naminé come back?
Naminé makes an appearance.
Okay, so here's the thing. Like, a lot about this game annoyed me. For starters, that Sora shouldn't give a shit about what happens in any of these Disney worlds.
Nope.
But what bothered me even more was he gets to the end, and he makes, like, at some point in the game while Naminé was manipulating his memories, he, like, promised to himself that he would always protect her. Naminé basically became Kairi. Right?
Yeah, I mean, but she manipulates him into doing it.
Exactly. And he gets to the end and he goes, I think verbatim, he says, even if you manipulated me into doing it, it was still my promise. I still did it.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, Sora, that's the exact opposite of what happened.
Yeah, the promise that he made was not a real promise. It was a promise she planted in his brain. And he's like, well, I got to honor it.
Yeah, in his mind, like, yeah, he still made it. Like, a promise is a promise. Like, what a tool.
That's a weird message to send also. Like, even if you're being manipulated, you should probably still do that thing you're manipulated into.
Yes, it's a horrible message to send. Like, is that what friendship is? Like, in the Kingdom Hearts world?
I just want to call out, how many different ways does someone try to brainwash or mind control Sora?
There's a bunch.
The main plot of this game is that they are trying to run Sora through Castle Oblivion, and then his memory will be peeled like an onion by Naminé.
There's nothing there.
And then at the center, they're going to replace Kairi, who Sora has a crush on for some unknown reason, because she's a woman, I guess, kinda. The only woman he's ever met, other than Selphie, and Selphie's a fucking idiot, so I understand. And so she replaces Kairi in Sora's head with Naminé, and then because Organization 13 has Naminé captive, she'll control him like a meat puppet who can wield the Keyblade.
Yeah.
But flawless plan, top to bottom.
Don't they, in different ways, like, just try to manipulate Sora? Like, aren't there other games where isn't Dream Drop Distance? Doesn't he have, like, dream mind control? Doesn't that happen?
Mm-hmm.
Like, doesn't someone try to mind control him in Kingdom Hearts 2 or 3? He gets mind controlled so much.
Yeah. Like, part of the plan is, we need 13 Xehanorts, so we're going to turn Sora into the 13th. Which, I don't know why you would decide to do that. It seems, like, needlessly complicated. You could just pick up someone off the street.
Nah, it's got to be Sora. And they need 13 Xehanorts.
Yeah.
We need a 10-day contract.
Uh-huh.
Call someone up from the D-League.
I will Like for as ludicrous as all of this is, though, shout out to Naminé for her white sundress. Always a
Yeah.
strong look.
It's a bold choice.
Looking good.
Yeah, she's a sharp dresser.
Mhm.
For all our listeners out there, wear more sundresses.
Shoutouts to Chain of Memories for having Naminé be a central character with, yet again, no personality.
Yep.
Mhm.
She exists solely to fuck with Sora's memories and not to have any interiority of her own.
Yeah, which if she's going to replace Kairi is pretty much a requirement.
Yeah,
Well,
shoutouts.
Did they explain in this one what Naminé is to...
No,
No?
nope.
Nope.
They don't
No.
even give her the metaphysical explanation of who she
Jesus.
is.
No reason why she's there, or like how Organization 13 came to kidnap her. She's
Why does
just
she
there.
have the power she has?
Who knows? Where'd
she's
she get the sundress? I don't know.
She's the nobody of Kairi, is the plot reason, but that's not addressed in this at all.
No.
Can she only fuck with Sora's memories, or does
I don't
she,
know.
can she fuck with anyone's? Can
No,
she
'cause
replace?
she does. She messes with Riku clone, doesn't she?
Yeah, but I guess can she only fuck with people who have a crush on Kairi?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's the only one she gets is Riku and Sora.
Yeah, she has this magical power, but only for people who have a crush on her human form.
Yeah. Basically.
A
Sure.
really specific power dreamed up for a very specific story that has no applicability to anything. Man, they kill it. And then in Riku's version of the story, you fight Zexion and... Oh, what's the other guy's fucking name?
Layaxis.
Greg
Greg.
with like
Yep.
4 X's at the end.
Greg is also there.
Gregson?
Greg's.
It's Layaxis.
Yeah.
Is Vexen in Riku's mode, or is he dead already?
Lexaeus.
No,
Lexaeus.
Vexen's there for like a little while. He makes an ancillary appearance.
And then he fights Ansem again.
Yeah.
Because they need to repurpose him.
And he harnesses the power of darkness and walks the middle path.
Mhm.
Yeah. So in Riku's side of the game, they do even less development of characters that matter.
Did we address there's a Riku story as well?
Oh yeah, after you beat the Sora story, there's a Riku story, and instead of starting at the ground floor and going up, you start at the basement and go up to the ground floor.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Is
Are the worlds the same? Do you go through the Disney worlds?
pretty
Yes.
much, yeah. You don't go through all of them. Like he doesn't go to the 100-Acre Woods,
Oh, what
but
an idiot.
they're all the same Disney stories.
Does Riku replace Sora in all the cutscenes, or are there no cutscenes because Riku wasn't
It's
in any of those?
Riku
Different.
specific cutscenes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, does he meet Hercules?
He meets Maleficent. I think the rest of the time he's just talking to Diz.
Yeah.
And King Mickey?
Yes.
Or is Mickey...
He shows that he's got like a Tinkerbell sort of thing going on. Like sometimes he's just like a ball of light, and
Great.
other times he actually like shows up in physical form.
Wait,
Okay.
whoa, what? This actually happened?
Yeah, so like he can like King Mickey can project his essence basically when needed.
Oh, yeah.
So
There's Yoda.
yes, when Sora's
of
about
course.
to succumb to the darkness, King Mickey
Right.
calls out to him and is like, "Nah, bro, I don't do that." And then later on at the very end, actual King Mickey shows up, and then they leave the castle together.
Huh.
Okay. So that reminds me that the Maleficent, Sleeping Beauty story, the storyline in Hollow Bastion in this game is, I think, the strongest story that is told in this entire game. And it's like 3 cutscenes, because I think it really captures what Kingdom Hearts should be about, but almost never is, because it is Maleficent, a character from Sleeping Beauty, talking to Beauty and the Beast, a different Disney movie, and she wants to steal Belle's heart because she uses hearts for her dark magic, which is a better explanation than any of the other garbage that they do.
Simple,
And-
straightforward. I don't need anything more. Like that's it. I got it.
And the problem that she's having is that Belle is rejecting Beast because to show her true affection for her would cause her heart to shine brightly and fill with love. And so she must reject the Beast and make the Beast angry so that both of them, if they were in love with each other and honest with each other, Maleficent could steal their hearts for her dark magic. That's way cooler.
And it's self-contained.
Yeah, self-contained. Makes use of the theme. The memory stuff. Actually, no, it's like the heart stuff more than anything. But I think Beast and Bell forget some stuff too.
We didn't need memory stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they created a new story using established characters with established relationships that could not be done outside of a Kingdom Hearts context. Way to go!
Yeah,
you did it.
Throw some Moogles in there too if you have to. Whatever.
Yeah,
they can all ride chocobos. I don't care.
Yeah, Cloud. He forgot his background. Hey, you know what? Cloud has amnesia in Final Fantasy VII. That's like a key part of him. That makes total sense that he'd want to get his memories back. It would be even better if he got his memories back and then he remembers like shit from Final Fantasy VII that's super weird, like that he's not who he thinks he is.
Mm-hmm.
That would be kind of cool.
That would
if
be
he had,
cool.
like an existential crisis, like Hades gives him his memories back, and he's like, "Oh fuck, I'm not really. I thought I was a soldier, but I'm not a soldier."
That would be a nice little like sort of monkey's paw, sort of Hades twist. Like that's in character for him.
Exactly.
That would have
Look
been
at all
really
these things
good.
they could have done that were on theme, but no. This game has to be about Axel, a cool character, Larxene.
Honestly, the only thing I found myself wondering during Riku's story is whether or not Riku's sword is sharp.
It
Oh,
seems to
yeah.
be.
Like, does it have an edge, or is it like a bludgeoning tool?
I mean, the Keyblade isn't sharp, but it
No.
does magic stuff, and that works.
I think it's a Rurouni Kenshin situation.
Got it. So it's a reverse blade sword. Got
It's
it.
a reverse blade sword.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
But man, this game, I think it really did establish a lot of stuff. Though I feel like this game's storyline is the most self-contained and masturbatory of all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Because at least in the other game, in this game they haven't established. I don't think the developers of the game had any objectives other than get you from Kingdom Hearts, get Sora in that pod.
Yeah, get him in the egg.
Get him in the egg. I think they had like Roxas planned.
Yeah.
Because
He shows it at
Axel,
the very end.
Yep.
yeah, and Axel says some cryptic stuff about, Sora's one of us,
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Mhm.
But I don't think at this point any of the like Aqua Terra Ventus stuff
No.
existed. I don't think that they
Definitely
had
not.
imagined that level of bullshit, and I don't think they had really planned out like what Organization 13 or like the double levels of mind control. Like none of that shit existed yet. So
Yeah.
this game was just trying to get Sora into that pod, and the only plot lines they were trying to set up were Roxas and Organization 13. And so from beginning to end of this game, it's just a romp through Kingdom Hearts 1's storylines, but a little bit different. And they cut out Tarzan.
Yeah.
It was funny.
It's weird. I don't know why. Of all the, I guess they needed 13 levels because Organization 13, and
Clever.
they had to cut one. So by
If they were going to
Tarzan,
cut one, that's fine.
yeah,
I'm okay with Tarzan. It's a racist story anyway.
Yeah, if they had to cut one, that's the one I would cut. So good on them for that.
Mhm.
But they introduce like 5 or 6 characters in this game, use all of their storytelling time to tell stories about those characters and develop them, and then they murder all of them. So it's just this game I don't think reviewed super well.
No, it actually, like, I was looking at it, it got a 76 on Metacritic,
yeah.
which still seems high.
It scored like solid C's all across the board, except for Game Zone, whatever that is. Gave it a 9.1.
I saw that one too. That was an aggressive move by Game Zone.
Yeah.
I think that this game it gets graded on a curve because it has characters that people care about, and like the music is there and sounds like the Disney stuff, and the gameplay is adequate in spots and at least is novel for a little while.
Does a
But
lot.
I think if games stories were graded on anything resembling a normal footing with any other media, this story would be much reviled.
Mm-hmm.
And this game would be reviewed much more harshly. And I think now people come back to this game and look at it through the lens of what it sets up, like knowing the Castle Oblivion's a key location in Kingdom Hearts lore, but when this game was being made, very clearly it was not.
Yeah. It was a throwaway game that was made to you. It was made so you didn't have to play it, basically.
You could just read the synopsis and you're like, oh, okay, I got
If
it.
you play 1 and then 2, you're fine.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about this one.
Yeah, I played 2, and I never really cared why Sora was in the egg.
Hmm
I was just like, okay, he's in an
That's
egg.
weird, but whatever. These
Yeah.
games are weird.
Yeah, that's fine. It hatched? Cool. All right, let's move on.
Yeah. Sora could have very easily been like anywhere else also. They didn't have to put him in an egg.
No,
They didn't.
no, they
Well,
didn't.
like,
He could have just like woken up in a bed, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, he was exhausted after that battle. Like, fine.
uh,
I mean, crazy idea here. I'm just a lunatic out here talking, but what if they just had a different impetus for you to go back to the Disney worlds? What if it wasn't Organization 13? And oh man, this game just feels like the filler arcs in like a Dragon Ball Z or like a
Yeah.
Naruto when they've
Sure.
run out of the official storyline and the TV show has outpaced the manga,
Yeah,
and so they have to come up with garbage.
you can just skip them until you get back to the main story because again, none of this has any impact.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's just this game would not be so upsetting if they did not retcon meaning into all of it.
hmm
Like Naminé in this game has she's cryptic in that they don't explain anything about her, and say that she has a bunch of plot significance. But if she didn't have magical powers, she would be completely meaningless. And even in this game, they do a poor job of explaining what her powers even are. So I didn't find her especially compelling. It's not like Elsa in Frozen, where she's got ice powers and that's inherently cool. Like being able to manipulate the hearts of 2 teenage boys is not especially compelling.
The worst type of person in the world.
The most easily manipulated.
Yeah.
Like, can we talk about that for a second? Like, their plan was to manipulate this teenage boy's heart by planting memories of a cute girl, as though you have to go through all that trouble.
Yeah, like
You
the
could
more
have
you
just
like,
introduced them.
Yeah.
like,
This is
hey,
Naminé.
You're cute. Like,
Yeah.
See
Think
her
she likes
sundress?
you.
Yeah. What if she just, sent him a letter? DM'd him once.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly,
It's-
they didn't even have to climb the castle. Like, if Naminé had just been like, "Oh yeah, Sora, we met one time in Traverse Town, and you promised to protect me forever," he'd be like, "Oh, I said that. Well, let me protect you forever." Like,
I said the word promise? Well, that's my safe word, so...
my word is my bond.
Yeah, and as soon as you meet Naminé, Goofy and Donald are like, "We're out of here, bro. We're your wingmen. Go get her, Tiger." If she had just introduced herself and then said, "Sora, I need your help. You come protect me," they would have been able to control him like nothing.
Yeah, that would have been it. They're done.
He's such an idiot. Larxene, I'm sure if she had just batted her eyes at him, he's such a tool. Oh man, bat your eyes at Goofy.
Goofy is a married man.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think canonically Goofy's married.
Oh,
If the Goofy movies are canon.
Well,
it's this pre-Goofy movie or post-Goofy movie?
I don't think
post.
the Goofy movies are established.
No, they're not. They're not canon.
I wish.
Because I know that Donald is an uncle. That's canon.
Yeah,
Donald
Kingdom
also
Hearts
has
lore.
Daisy.
he's got Daisy. Yeah.
Man, I wish that the Goofy movie kids were in these games because they'd
Yeah.
be so anachronistic.
Oh
Mhm.
man, the
Even
Goofy
more
movies are the
anachronistic.
best.
They are
Let's
quite good.
let's just watch those instead
Yeah,
of
right. Let's
Chain
turn
of
this into
Memory.
a Goofy movie podcast.
We could. Maybe next time. But I think that I've said my piece with Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories. This game, and largely this series, is like playing a game of Mousetrap. You see that everyone's assembling all of these pieces to, this elaborate Rube Goldbergian machine. But ultimately, all the machine does is catch a mouse.
That was pretty good.
Is it Mickey Mouse?
Yes, it's Mickey Mouse, shirtless Mickey Mouse.
There you go.
Like, hearing people explain this game and the stories and all of the, mental gymnastics that the people who made these games painted themselves into, that they had to, make games to explain just inane bullshit that only they care about. It's amazing.
And the solution is always more Xehanorts.
Yeah.
More Xehanorts, my friends, I love them. And man, even like, it would have been something if Sora like had his memories peeled away and then he's like, oh, but I still remember my friends. Like, even with Naminé manipulating me, I still remember Kairi. But no. There's
That
no
makes
message.
Too much sense.
There's no message. He doesn't remember his friends. He actually will turn on his friends in a fucking heartbeat if a pretty girl bats her eyelashes at him.
That's all he needs.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, that's Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories. Don't play it. We played it so you don't have to.
Yep. We actually provided a public service this time.
Mm-hmm.
We did. We'll see you at the Game of the Year, Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories.
It's going to be a
Can't
tough
wait.
battle between you and Gree.
Yeah.
Yep. So, Em, it is your turn
Oh, all
to
right.
pick a game.
Oh boy. Well,
You
Let's
it was
play.
gonna be
Let's run it
elaborate.
back. Chain of Memories again.
yeah. One more time.
This
Just
time we're playing Chain of Memories.
make
Oh, I guess
sure. we
Em,
could-
is there anything different in Chain of Memories?
I couldn't say. I haven't played the GBA Chain of Memories in probably when did it come out?
2004.
2004.
So I probably haven't played it in about 15 years.
Sounds about right.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good call.
Yeah. You haven't missed anything. You've got you got all the story notes.
Highlights.
Does
Yeah.
navigating in three-dimensional space make it more fun?
No, it's worse. It's actually
Your
more
cards coming
annoying.
right at you.
Yeah. I will say, navigating in 3D space as opposed to the two-dimensional, like, 2.5D in the GBA game, you just don't see things coming at you when you're being attacked.
Awesome.
So, while you're navigating your cards, you are also moving around the space, and it's just
And controlling a camera?
yeah, you're controlling the camera, you're controlling the character, you're controlling your cards, you're trying to keep an eye on the enemy. It's a lot.
That sounds like hell.
Yeah, I do not recommend this game.
At least in the GBA version, you would occasionally get into a spot where the enemy thought that they could hit you, and the AI would just like spam attacks, but you'd just be off just a little bit in the 2.5D, so they'd just be swinging at air, and they'd use their entire deck attacking at an angle that they could never hit you. It was beautiful.
I did like seeing all of the characters that were in 2D rendered in 3D, like that final fight with Marluxia. That's pretty good. But just watch it. You don't have to play it.
And I gotta say, it's also bullshit that the Organization 13 members can fly,
Yeah.
because it's very annoying trying to combo them when they just fly higher than any of your attacks reach.
hmm
Seems real fucked up that they can do that.
Yeah. You can't
they
Sonic
also-
Blade them.
No, they also like fly behind you if you use Simba or anything that like has an attack in front. They will teleport away. Awesome stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so now the next game,
So,
your pick.
all right, next game. I get to pick. I have chosen to instead make this the most complicated thing you've ever seen. I've devised a chart of
Yes.
a whole lot of games. And in order to decide which game we're going to play, because I could not decide, Gino, pick a number 1 through 10.
1 through 10. Okay, good that you gave me, because I was going to say 357 over 2.
Yes, thank you.
So
Speak
instead,
up.
I'm going to
Nice.
say I'm going to say 2.
2. Pete, pick a number.
Let's go 5.
5. And then I'm going to pick, let's pick 9. And then I'm going to roll this D20.
How
Yes.
large is this chart?
Hold on. 18 is the number on the die. So 18 minus 2 is 16 plus 5,
23.
20, 21. 21 minus 9 is
12.
12. Life is Strange Before the Storm.
Ooh.
Okay. All right.
It has been decided. I will show you this chart. It's real cool.
Can I get that chart so I can post it in the
Yeah.
as the art for this podcast?
Yes. This chart has negative numbers in it, by the way.
My goodness.
Here, let me
I love it.
send that to you.
I love it.
I will probably still go back to this for the next time that I get to choose.
You know, if you could put more red string and then write Riku with a question mark,
Yeah.
just like on there somewhere.
There were some really good choices on this chart, too. So,
Well, this is good because we've played the original Life is Strange on this show, and it was a strong contender for one of our Game of the Year awards.
Big hit.
We really enjoyed it, and the only reason we did not play the Before the Storm is because there were scabs working on it at the time.
oh, I forgot about that.
All of the voice actors were striking when it
Right.
originally came out, so
Yeah.
we did not play it when it was new.
Mhm.
But now it is out, and now you have
There's
chosen it.
solidarity with labor.
Yeah. So, for those who don't know, Life is Strange Before the Storm is the prequel to Life is Strange. So, if you don't want to be spoiled for Life is Strange, if you still haven't played that,
Play it.
play it. And then,
And revisit our Life is Strange podcast.
yeah. So, we're going to talk about that. It's going to be fun. I've never actually played the third episode of this one. I played the first two. So, I know how it ends, but it'll be cool to see.
Ooh, excellent. There's currently a Square Enix franchise sale.
Oh, yeah.
And Life is Strange Before the Storm is technically a Square Enix game.
Oh, boss.
Yep. Go
So
get
it
that.
is currently 70% off.
Snatch it up.
Nice.
All right, so we will be playing this, and if you have any feedback, if you would like to tell us about Kingdom Hearts, go to hell. That's not true. We want your emails. Do so at deeplistenspod or deeplistenspodcast. Deeplistens.libsyn.com. We've got our comment sections and deeplistenspodcast at gmail.com. You can write in. If we've made a horrible mistake about the Kingdom Hearts canon, please tell us.
I'm sure we have.
If you feel that Kingdom Hearts is better than what we've given it credit for, please write in. We'll totally read what you've written. Maybe not on the show. We'll see. But just feel like, since people haven't written in, you all agree with us.
We're on track. We're continue as planned.
Your silence means that you agree.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you, Pete.
Oh, it was a pleasure, even when the game itself isn't. Especially write in if you know if Riku's sword is sharp. That's the only thing I care about now.
Thank you, M.
Sword is a blunt weapon. That's
Damn.
my call.
All right.
Thank you, M.
Thank you. That was
And
that was my closing out. I was saying.
Okay. Just making sure.
Good
Yeah.
close. Good close.
Yeah. Thank you.
Strong close. And thank you, listeners. Till next time, peace.